Hi there, Lindsay here, the Frugal Crafter. Today we are going to paint an iris using pastels, and I have a variety of pastel colors here from different brands. You can use whatever you have, and I also have some just eyeshadow blenders if I want to blend a color and I don't want to get my fingers dirty. They're handy. Very inexpensive products. And I have to thank viewer Jennifer for sending over this photo that she took of a beautiful iris. I will have that link down below so you can find it as well. I'm going to start by sketching on with a hard pastel, and generally your hard pastels are square edged and they're a little skinnier. You can also use a pastel pencil, and I'm going to start I would say in the mid upper left hand corner, and I'm going to do this big petal on the front. Hopefully that shows up. I don't want to have it too dark because I want to be able to smudge out any lines I don't need. And then I'm going to make a little kind of like V underneath to start the other two petals coming on from either side. And I'm going to sketch that on. And then I'm going to do the same over here. They're not going to be exactly the same because the way petals are turned away from each other, they'll just be a little bit different. We just want to get the general idea here. I'm going to put another petal back here. And we're going to get the hip of the flower here, kind of like a long diamond. And that's going to come this way. Now I can actually switch over to a green pastel if I want to, but I don't think this pink is too dark that it's going to cause any problems. So I'm going to go ahead and put in that little bud, and then maybe I'll grab the green just to finish sketching in that stem. You don't have to have super detailed sketches here, just to kind of map things out. And I also want to make sure that I have another little petal kind of coming in from behind there. And then I am going to put a bud. Let's put a bud right up here. I think I'm going to have it a little bit taller. And I am doing it in the green because I think it'll stand out a little bit better. And this one's going to have another little one coming off of it. And I'm just going to bring that down here, and we can have another one coming off here. And so that's really all we need. You can put more buds in if you feel like you want to kind of fill the space up, but that's pretty much up to you whether you want to do that or not. So we're also going to go ahead and we can put in a few, just suggest a few grasses around here, around the bottom of the picture. We're going to keep this pretty beginner friendly here. And now we're going to start working top to bottom, mainly because I'm working flat on a table and I don't want to smudge my hands in a lot of the pastels. So I'm going to start up here, and I've got a variety of purples, and I am going to begin with kind of a medium purple. Now this is a Winsor Violet Tint 5, so it's a fairly dark medium purple. It's not a super vivid purple. So I'm going to go in and just kind of trace the edge of my flower, and I can be really bold with this because I have a good idea of where everything's going to go just with that little sketch that I started off with. And now I know this one in back should be a little bit bigger, so I'm going to go ahead and kind of just sketch in that ruffly edge like that. And I'm going to put in a little bit of color here because I know I'm going to want a little bit of dark right there and a little bit over here. And I'm also going to get a little bit of this color on this petal just by pretty much tracing it. Now there's going to be a yellow beard in here, so like right there at the top of those two petals. So I want to make sure that I don't put a bunch of purple there because it will be difficult for me to cover over that. So I'm adding a little more detail to this petal, and then this one in back is going to be darker, so I'm just going to go ahead and fill it in with this pastel. Now we're not doing tons of layers in this piece, so you don't have to have a bunch of different hardnesses, but I do like to start off my sketch with a hard pastel just because it is easier to layer on top of that, but we're not going to do tons and tons of layering, so you're fine if you just have one box of student grade pastels. That would be fine. The Faber-Castell Studio Gold Faber pastels are nice, and they're very affordable. Okay, and I can put a little bit on the tips of these buds while I'm at it with this dark color. I like to, even though with pastels you might end up using more colors than you typically would if you were using like a liquid paint, because they don't mix as much as like a liquid paint would. I still like to get this color everywhere to kind of harmonize things. So now I'm going to go in with this kind of more fuchsia color. This is Purple 1 here from Schmincke. And I'm going to add some of this here on the bottom. Now, Schmincke pastels are very soft. They're also quite expensive, so just to warn you there. But I find a lot of times I will end up just using these Schmincke ones on my final layers. So you don't have to use them up or use them all the time to have them useful in your stash. You could even get an inexpensive half stick set to get going with if you wanted to try them, but you weren't sure about investing a lot. I like this color, it's really pretty. But really, I think as far as usability, I don't find a lot of difference between the brands. Even inexpensive children's brands will give you that pleasure of painting. They just may fade, where an artist grade pastel, which is, you know, pure pigment, is going to be less likely to. It's the same pigment that you'd find in your you know, in your fine art paints. They just have like a clay binder to hold everything together. So it's just a very, very direct type of painting. Now I'm going to grab this kind of indigo color. This one is called, oh, it's actually a Prussian blue. It's a really vivid Prussian blue. It was very velvety and dark. And I'm going to go in, anywhere I see really, really dark colors, I'm going to go in and put this in. You want to still be aware of your values when you're working with pastel, even though you can layer. Once you fill the tooth up of your paper, you're going to have a harder time getting more pastel in. So you definitely want to get those layers, or those dark values in before you have a lot of layers down. And now I'm going to grab some really pale purple. This is Ultramarine Violet Tint 2. But you can pretty much go by eye. And look at that, it almost looks white next to all these other bright colors, doesn't it? Now when I'm putting the pastel in, I'm going to pay attention to any sort of direction, like in the veining or you know, texture that I see, and I'm going to try to replicate that, because I think with pastels the beauty is keeping it very direct. Some blending is nice, but it's also really nice to see the strokes in your work, I think. A little bit in there. The buds of the pastel, of the irises, will have a lot of this really, really pale blue violet in them as well. And the nice thing about pastel is, you know, it's like kind of like watercolor. You could sit down and go. You don't have to squirt out colors. You can just pick up the pastels and have fun, just like you were a kid with a box of crayons. This color here is a, let's find the English word. It looks kind of like a yellow ochre, but it's a little bit browner. So I am going to peel that back a little bit. I just try to peel off enough of the wrapper so that my hands don't get completely dirty when I'm using it. But look at that gorgeous golden color. I'm just going to add a little bit of that into some of the husk part of the buds, where they've got that kind of almost onion skin texture coming around them. And this is a nice color to add to the stems. It gives it a real natural, earthy look. You can even put some into these grasses. That's the nice thing about working on toned paper, is that it does a lot of the work for you, which is really nice. Now some of this can also go up here at the start of these stems. And then I'm actually going to go right in and get some yellow for the beard. It's nice to assign those colors so that you don't get surprised when you, you know, when you go to put them in and then you've got a bunch of color there already. I'm going to grab some pink. Now you notice I don't mix as much with the pastels as I would with watercolor. I am generally picking up a new pastel when I'm working with a new color. That keeps your colors fresh. You're not going to be doing as much mixing. You can blend, they're going to blend beautifully, but you just want to be careful that you don't lose the quality of the pastel, which is very direct and intense and beautiful. And I love this kind of purpley magenta color, so I want to get some more of that in there. Now before you blend, I would make sure that you have enough on there so that you're not going to get, stretch your colors too thin. And I like these little blenders because the handles can kind of tell me what color I should use to blend. So when you blend, you can fill in the tooth and kind of merge the colors together. But sometimes seeing a little bit of that texture, that grain of the paper, is really nice. So keep in mind that you don't want to do it everywhere, if at all. It just depends on what you're trying to convey, really. Sometimes you want to blend an area out because you want to put another layer on and you want to have a nice base of solid color, and that's totally fine. And that's generally when I tend to blend. I also put paper towels down where I'm setting my pastels. That will just kind of keep them clean and also keep my table clean and keep dust from getting everywhere, and especially out of my brand new camera that I'm recording on for the first time today. So let me know if you notice a difference in quality with this video. Just leave me a comment. Let me know if you can tell that it was done on a different camera, and let me know what you think. I hope it's positive because this is the first major camera upgrade I've ever made after being on YouTube for 10 years. I mean, I've got a new I've purchased a camera obviously in the past, but nothing very fancy. Now, if you find yourself wanting to get rid of extra dust on your painting, you do not want to blow the dust away because you could end up breathing that in. So what you want to do, and another reason to have like paper down or paper towels down or a waste paper basket nearby is you just want to tip it up and just kind of tap that off. You don't want to blow it into the air. That's another reason I recommend people start off with like a student grade or like a kid's grade pastel, because they're non-toxic, and if it's very tempting to want to, this is like an ultramarine blue here, it's very tempting to want to blow that dust, right? Because it's just, you think chalk dust, you're just going to blow it out of the way. That's very bad for you to breathe in, and it's just a bad habit. So that's just a good reason to if try it out with the student grade pastels. Not only are they cheaper, but they're better for your health. And if you're just learning, chances are you're not going to be running out to sell your paintings. So you might as well learn on something that's not going to give you health problems if you decide to to breathe it in. So now that I've put that, I've blended that first layer, I'm going to go in and start adding some shadows. I'm going to add some more gestural lines. I'm not going for perfection here. I am going for the feel of the flower. When I do these marks, I want these marks to go with kind of the way the veining would go on the flower. A lot of times I'll just, if I know I'm going to be going back and forth between a few pastels, I'll just hold them in my hand as I'm working. Try to keep that movement, keep that beautiful direct effect, because you lose a lot when you blend. So you got to kind of either trust yourself to leave it be, or go back in with another layer and get that movement back. You really want to take advantage of the full range of values. So this green, the spring green, is so beautiful and bright. It just cuts through any of the darker colors. You'll notice that your lighter colors are a little bit more powerful than your darker colors, or definitely more powerful than your midtones. So once you put them down, I would try to leave them be and let them just kind of make everything glow. And, you know, don't let yourself stress out about it. Pretend like you're coloring in a coloring book. And when I start out pulling colors that I think I'm going to use, sometimes I need to go in and grab some others, and I'll show you how I store my pastels. They're in these little pastel keeper trays. I got mine many years ago at Jerry's Artorama. They go on sale frequently. I think I paid around $24 for my chest at about 3 drawers like that. I think they're much more than that now because this was probably about 10 years ago when I got mine, but they are probably the best way that I've found to store the pastels other than the box they came in, because usually the boxes they come in are really nice for storage too, so don't feel like you have to run out and buy something special. But since I have a bunch of different brands and some that I've purchased like by the stick, you know, I had a bunch of road pastels, so I needed a way to keep them all together, because I find that whatever supply it is, I tend to use it more if I have stored with my other like supplies. And if you only have one set of pastels, you certainly don't need that. Keep it in its original box and you're going to be fine. Now I think if you know, when you're setting out to do a painting, whether it be pastel or watercolor or oils or acrylics, when you're planning it, you should probably kind of think about how much time you want to invest in it. Because if you know you want to invest like 2 hours in a painting, then you probably want to invest more time in the drawing itself, because that way, you know, you just take a little bit more time planning, so you don't end up getting yourself like in a corner or realizing you don't have enough going on in the background. And you know, I knew this was going to be a kind of a quick, easy beginner project, so I decided to kind of just keep it really sketchy. So that's another thing to keep in mind when you're working. Like you might have wanted to put more of the background in and smudge it out and then sketch on your main feature, and that's a totally fine way to go about it. And I was just doing more of like one layer and letting the background do a lot of the work, and kind of working in that fashion. And you may find that you work better on darker paper or lighter paper, and that is completely a personal choice. I just want to throw in some kind of darker values just to give this a little bit of depth, but I am going to blend it out. I kept a wet rag handy for wiping my hands on. It's just a paper towel that I sprayed with water. You could also use a baby wipe or anything like that you might have on hand. I think I'm going to go in with some white and give the beard a little bit more definition. You can wipe off your pastels if they get dirty. That's why you have that rag there. I'm going to put a little bit more of this medium color here. You can go in with pastel pencils for details, but just keep in mind that if you're going over other softer stick pastels, it won't stick as well. It'll kind of stick in fits and spurts, so you might not get that that bright crisp line that you're hoping for, because it's just not going to stick as well. And like, use your complementary colors. If you got purple and you want your purple to look more purple, grab some yellow, because it's the opposite color. It's opposite on the color wheel, so it's going to look a little bit more vibrant. I think I need a more vivid pink. I'm going to grab this one here. And that's why it's really handy to have all your supplies together, because then you can just grab them. And you know, if you've laid out a certain amount of supplies but you realize you want something else, well, you can go in and grab that one you're missing. I also feel like I need something that's a little bit bolder. I don't have a very big purple selection, I'm finding. I think I might grab this really, now this is a hard pastel, but I think I might be able to use it to get some more definite lines in there. Yeah, it'll work. It's nice to have a variety. And just like if you have some yellow and you don't feel like, you know, you feel like you need a little something in the yellow, try sketching in with some purple, because that will burst out, you know, make the yellow stand out because it's an opposite. And these really pale, almost white colors, these really pale tints. Like this is ultramarine violet tint 2, this is ultramarine violet tint 1. They almost look white when you put them on the paper, but they do a great job at kind of breaking out some of the picture. If you feel like you've lost an edge, you can go in there and kind of get it back. I think I'm just going to throw in a few more just gestural leaves, and I'm going to call it good, because this is just a sketch. We are just playing with our pastels today. I am playing with my new camera to see how it works, and I might revisit this picture again because it was so fun, but I think I would go in, zoom in a little bit closer on the flower itself. Oh, I think I want a super, super light highlight on the stem too. Tap off the excess and see what we have here. Maybe a little bit more bright on the stem, and I would recommend overlapping your colors versus blending them out at this stage. Just try to overlap them to get the effect you want. You'll often get a fresher, more vibrant look that way. And it's very impressionistic. I think it's just a, you know, a really nice soft look, and it is a lot of fun to play with these pastels. So when you're done, you can either put a piece of like glassine over it to kind of protect it, or you could spray it with some fixative, like I usually use a Krylon workable fixative in case I want to come back and do anything else. It's always good to evaluate your pictures a couple days later and see what you think. And then it should be fine. The fixative will kind of glue down all that loose dust and keep it from flaking up, but just keep in mind when you do use a fixative, it will darken your colors a little bit, so just keep that in mind so you don't end up losing all your whites. If that happens, you'll just go back in again with your paler colors, your white, your light tints, and just kind of bring them up again. I hope you found this beginner pastel lesson useful. Please give me a thumbs up if you enjoyed it, and let me know what you think about the new camera in the comments below. Thank you for watching. Until next time, happy crafting.